Hi, everybody, and I hope everybody's doing okay. Happy you're all here. And I am so honored and thrilled to be able to introduce you to my friend, Linda Burnham. Um, Linda is an extraordinary healer, and she's an extraordinary teacher. And what I love so much about her work is that although she has vast knowledge about the physical immune system and how to boost it, she has equal knowledge on what I call the spiritual immune system, and how to lift that part of you, which, as we all know, the spiritual is going to affect the physical immune system. And so she works both with energy fields. She taught me the importance of light and the purpose of light and how to work with light. And that in and of itself has helped me enormously. But she's always learning and teaching and sharing what she knows. She is truly a blessing. Please help join me in welcoming Linda Burnham to our group.
Thank you so much, Sherry. I do appreciate it, and I must say I love you too. Absolutely.
Mutual.
So, when I've really meditated and prayed on what to talk about today, particularly given the world we live in, COVID-19 and quarantine and the depth of what all of us have worked through or lived through in the last 2 months as we have stayed sheltered at home. And I'm aware that in this time, as I'm sure many of you are, there is a great deal of fear and panic that spreads through the world. There is concern and apprehension about what will come next. There is a wondering of what will life be when we actually come together in some mode. Every one of us who still work are wondering, how does the workplace going to show up? For those of us who are not working in the workplace, we're wondering, how do we engage with the world? And those questions have a lot of apprehension in them. So what I want to do to start with today is to address the energy that is planetary. It is a world envelope of energy that we are living within. And because all of you know we are completely interconnected, we are one being in all these billions of separate bodies, but we are interconnected and we are interresponsive. And so if any one of us can find ourselves more grounded, more clear, more whole, more connected to our life, connected to a sense of joy and optimism and hope at this time, that single being can radiate that energy out to their entire family, to their circle of friends, to their community, to their country, and ultimately to the world. One person's change of grounding in the light and grounding in a peaceful, joyous expression of self can make a huge difference in our planet. And so what I'm engaged in right now is being aware of that. That's why I do meditations at certain times during the year to help people center themselves and stay clear and filled with light. That's why I teach more and more people about spiritual immunity and psychic hygiene. And I use the word spirit and spiritual and psychic in a slightly different way. Psychic gifts, psychic perceptions, psychic intuitions are natural to us as human beings. It is not strange for someone to begin seeing or hearing or feeling things that are out of the norm, so to speak. But when beings who begin doing that lift themselves to apply those gifts and those apprehensions, those wonderful intuitions into a spiritual energy, it changes the quality of what we see and hear and know. And it allows that to be far more pervasively helpful to our own lives and to lives on the planet. So I use both words today because people know the word psychic, they know the word spiritual, and I'm joining them together. So it's spiritual immunity, and we're going to talk about psychic hygiene today. We all know we're washing our hands. That's a very important thing these days. And how we wash our hands and what we do with it is really lovely. And I might, if anybody wants me to send the latest Your Medicine Chest blog to any of them on hand washing, it's really great if I do say so myself. And you'll enjoy what it gives you because it will teach you things you don't know. But what I want to talk today is not just the hand washing and the mask wearing and the 6 foot difference. It's what are each of us doing individually with the envelope of energy that surrounds and activates certain energies within us as planetary beings. Now, so I'm going to take you on a little journey, and I'd like you to join me with it as much as you can. We're going to go into the world of quantum physics. We're going to go into the world of really beginning to understand who we are as human beings and as multidimensional beings in our human bodies and human lives. So what I want you to do for a moment, and indulge me, I'd like you to take your finger and your thumb, and I'd like you to put it on your thumb, on your thigh. And I want you to pluck one atom out of the billions and billions of atoms that make up your physical body. Just pluck that single atom out and bring it up in your finger and thumb. Now you have one atom from your body between finger and thumb at this point. So I want you to look at it with your higher senses. I want you to feel it. I want you to think about it. Now, when I grew up, atoms were nucleuses and electrons. And depending on the atom we were talking about, it had one ring of electrons, several rings of electrons, many, many rings of electrons, right? I think they may be teaching things a little differently today, but I'm not sure. I should check that out by some kids who are studying chemistry and quantum physics. But if you have that atom in your hand, I want you to realize that from the old model, which many of us studied, there is a nucleus in that atom that's full of protons and neutrons. And there is a ring of electrons. Let's just say it's the simplest atom in the world. Let's say it's a hydrogen atom. I think that's it. It's that or helium, I forget. Which means there's one electron spinning around that nucleus, just one. And then because it's a simple atom, that's all there is. Now, if we go to another atom that has more rings, there will be a first ring. There will be a second ring with a certain number of electrons. There'll be a third and onward. Now, have you ever imagined what the distance is between that nucleus and that electron in the atom you're holding between your fingers? What is that distance? I want you to just think about it and imagine what you think it might be in a single atom, just one. And be aware of what you would say. Is it 30 inches? Is it 50 feet? What might it be for you? The distance between the nucleus of an atom and the first ring of electrons for any atom is approximately 30 feet. And when there is another ring of electrons, you got another 30 feet there. And if you got another and another and another, that atom's electrons play is going out, 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 out. So I want you to look around you for a moment in the environment you're in and see if you can guess how far 30 feet is. Is it the wall in front of you? Is it the next door neighbor's house? Is it that tree in the backyard? But I want you to be aware of what 30 feet might actually be for you. Okay, now, what's in all that empty space? Because from the nucleus to the electron, 30 feet, it's empty space. What could be there? And then from that electron ring to the next, what could be there? And to the next, what could be there? Just imagine now your own body, how much open space there is between every single atom in your body and the very complex atoms that are also part of your body. So if you feel your body right now, the majority of it is open space. And what they found with the advent and the pursuing of quantum physics is they would bore into the electron and say, what's in here? There's got to be particles of matter because we're solid beings. You know, I can hold my hands. I can sit my butt on the chair. I can tap my table. I can work my computer. I'm solid, right? I'm solid matter. But what they found out is that when you begin going deeper and deeper into any electron, you do not find any particulate matter, nothing solid. It's all energy. When you go into the depth of a nucleus, you find those neutrons, you find the protons. They began to find neutrinos and mesons and all kinds of little particles. And they thought if they drilled down enough, they'd drill down and down and down and down, and they would find the particulate matter that makes us solid beings, that makes our table, our chair, our lamp, our home, our planet solid. Guess what? They never found it. And the more they smash atoms and look at them and take pictures, the more they realize there is no particulate matter in an atom. But everything in our world is made up of atoms. So the reality is that here, as we sit in this virtual room together that's spread over the planet, you're sitting on a solid chair. It's holding your body. Your computer or your pad or your phone is right there and it's solid in your hand. But it isn't. In a real, true, scientific manner, it isn't solid. So then the question is again, what is in all that space between all those things we're looking at, be it neutrons, protons, electrons, or all the little particles? They find when they drill down really deeply, they find energy. That's all it is, it's energy. And it's energy with a probability of movement. That's what it is, all of it. Doesn't matter whether you call it a meson or a neutrino or an electron, it's the same thing. It's energy with a probability of motion. Now, just take that in for a minute. When we really take a look at our world and who we are, it's kind of amazing. Now I'm going to make a little leap here and I'm going to talk about us for a moment. We are human beings, and as human beings, we have physical bodies that we've been talking about, right? But we also have energetic bodies, and I call that the light physical. We also have emotional bodies. We feel, we have emotions. We respond, we act from those feelings. We have mental bodies. We actually have two of them. We have a concrete mind and we have an abstract mind, both very active. The concrete mind is the kind of mind that actually will solve a problem. From my perspective, I began as a massage therapist, and in my day, we had big, solid massage tables that were 500 pounds. You could never move them. And as I went through the world of healing, they developed lighter and lighter weight, portable massage tables. And then they became so lightweight, boy, you can really go up and down the stairs and work on your clients at home, right? Someone looked at that problem and solved it and said, we can do this, this, and this. And there was a stage. Then they looked at that stage and said, no, that's not enough. How about this, this, and this? And so the concrete mind puts things together in uniquely creative ways and is able to create physical matter in a new way. That's part of everybody's mind. We all have it. But we also have an abstract mind. Now that's the mind that thinks about that which is not physical. It thinks about, things. It thinks about philosophies. It thinks about ideas. It thinks about the world. It writes books and magazine articles and movies and television scripts. It writes poetry. It sings. It thinks about cooking. I'm a cook. I'm a passionate cook. So I think about recipes and what'll go there and what taste goes here. I think about them. That's my abstract mind trickling down into something I can make into a meal or a dish that's new and exciting for me and the people I'm serving in the concrete way. We all have that. Every one of us, some a little more active in some ways, and that's why we have engineers and we have philosophers. But then we also have a spiritual being. I call them all levels of being, 5 levels of being. The spiritual level of being is something in some ways almost indefinable. It is each one of these, let me take this little detour here. Each one of these levels of being has a rate of vortexual spin of the atoms involved. And that's how fast the atoms literally turn, right? And a rate of spin when we're in physical is dense physical. It's here, we're solid, seemingly, and it moves slowly. When we move into the energetic body, which I understand many of you work with and on, all of a sudden that vortexual spin speeds up and it's going faster and it lightens the matter. It is a lighter physical body, the energetic reality of who you are, that level. And then we'll go ahead and spin a little faster, and all of a sudden you're in emotions and feelings. That is a higher rate of vortexual spin of the atom that is you. It's not separate from you, it is you. It doesn't come from some outside source. It does sometimes, we'll talk about that in a minute. But the feelings that are in you, they are yours. Okay? For the moment, we're going to hold that. We feel, we have emotions. We go that up to the mental, concrete mind, and yes, that spins faster still, lighter weight, different. The atom is the same, but it spins differently. Vortexual spin is higher. Then we go to the abstract mind, higher still. Wow. And then we move into the spiritual realm, of which there are several spiritual bodies or spiritual levels of being. And I'm just, for this particular conversation, just going to talk about them as one level. And at that level, our vortexual spin is at the highest it can be. Each one of those spiritual levels takes us up a notch in spin, up a notch, up a notch. Those of you who have studied mystical theosophy, let's say, that's one of the schools that talks about the various spiritual bodies, the Buddhic and the monadic and the Atmic. And each one of them has an impact on us as humans because it's us. It's not separate from us. We all are created and living our lives in the midst of all these levels of being and all these atomic shifts in vortexual spin. All right? That's quantum physics. When you start adding the spiritual, they might quibble a bit if they're not a spiritual bent, but many are. Because once you get to the place where you become a quantum physicist, you start realizing that God and matter are one. And many of them write about it today. Okay. So now you have a sense of the levels of being. What happens with these levels of being and all this empty space we're talking about is that my physical body is right here. I'm talking to you right now. And my light body, my light physical, spins a little faster, but it still interpenetrates my physical. It interpenetrates every single atom because it is my atomic structure. But it has a little bit of space outside that, an area of its own influence. Now that can be 2 inches, it can be 5 inches, it can be a foot, or in the place of masters of light, it can go way out, right? But it's me. So what spins on the outside of this, of me, my light physical, interpenetrates me and spins inside me too. Not separate. It affects me. It impacts me. And then we go to emotional. Emotional has a higher rate of spin, so it expands outward again. And there is an area of influence that the emotional body has. Separate from, but it interpenetrates my energetic and it interpenetrates my physical. So what I feel affects my physical. You know, and that's the whole thing about hypochondria. Or when we have a deep emotional hit or a deep trauma or get surprised and shocked at something, that's an emotional response. And what happens to us then is all of a sudden we can't eat so well and it doesn't feel really good and you don't really want to go out and play and a little nausea and maybe a headache. So your emotional being is affecting your physical. Happens all the time. And if you stub your toe, boy, does that affect your emotional being. You know you stubbed your toe. And what can come out of your mouth at that stub, we all do, right? And so as we go then out to the mental bodies, they spin a little faster, but they interpenetrate the emotional. They interpenetrate the light physical. They interpenetrate every single cell and of your physical body. Amazing. You do the same, that's concrete and abstract. And the spiritual being bodies do the same for us. They have their own sphere of influence, and yet they are us, and they interpenetrate every one of the layers of being down to the very core of our densest spinning atom of manifestation, our physical body. but it's all you. It's all me. So I want you to bear this in mind as we're talking about these times. And I'm going to take a little drink of tea here. Everything we think, everything we feel, everything we experience is part of our atomic structure. So when you stub your toe and that energy goes out from you, it literally radiates from you. It emanates from you. Whatever you might have said as you stubbed your toe goes right on out. When that person stops you in line when you're driving and they're not going fast enough around that red light or that turn on the right and you start honking your horn or spewing again, that energy literally radiates out from you and it touches them. Because if you realize every atom is 30 feet and more, that means that when you're sitting in your car at that light, waiting for that car to go on, you are interpenetrating that car and that person, and they are interpenetrating you. It's just the way it works. When you sit in a room with someone, any room, and I'm not talking about a COVID virus, I'm talking about something else. When you sit in a room with someone, we automatically share electrons back and forth. So when you leave that room, that class, that situation, that restaurant, that store, you literally are taking some of the other people's electrons in your body, and they're absorbing yours. There is an electron exchange between living things. When you go out into the world and you go out into the forest, let's say, or the meadow, and you feel the green and the water and the flowers and the life force that's there, we call that good ionization. It's negative ions, right? But the reason it affects us well is because there's a trade. We give off our positive ions, which are not good for the physical body, and we take in that fresh ionization. And it changes us. And you go home and you feel better. There is always an electron exchange. Always. Always. Now, yes, there is a limit to how far your auric field goes. And what I've just described to you are the levels and areas of our auric field when we talk about it. And for people, again, who are masters of light, it can be miles. It's said that Jesus's aura extended over 3 miles. And so when he walked into a town, it was everywhere. And there are masters of light in every culture. But we know them more in India because they're more obvious. It's a different kind of country, that their auras are also extremely big and wide, and the breadth and depth of their powerful energies are incredible. So you have to realize that regardless of how big or stable your aura is, you are interpenetrating everything around you, because we're all empty space. Everything's empty space. What's in the empty space? All of us are. Our feelings, our thoughts, our dreams, our spiritual focus. So, in today's world, as I said when I began, there is a lot of terror, a lot of fear about what's going on now, about sickness and illness, about family members, and about what will the future be. And what happens when any of us are in traumatic situations, traumatized situations, is our feelings and our mind radiates with such power. Much of the force of our expression of radiation is through our emotional self. So when there is fear, anxiety, that's what gets radiated, whatever it is we're afraid of. And if you imagine our 8.5 to 9 billion people all radiating and all interpenetrated, I would imagine that I could say easily that those of you who are elsewhere around the world right now are interpenetrating me. Because you'll interpenetrate someone next to you and they'll interpenetrate someone next to you, and it goes ding, 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 right down the line. And all of a sudden I'm feeling what you're feeling, possibly. Okay? Or I begin thinking what you're thinking, possibly. Now this group of people work on themselves. They're in a spiritual process to make their life better and to bring their light and their groundedness to other beings who need it. So here you can imagine that if you began taking good care of your physical body, taking good care of your energetic body, taking good care of your emotions, taking good care of your mind, and good care of your spirit, that care, that nurturance of self would also bing, 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 right through the auric fields of everybody on the planet. Okay? So what we're going to talk about is how can we keep ourselves clear today so that we can serve our life and serve the greater life in a better way. Okay. So there are several things which I would assume that many of you already do, but it is important, number one, to keep your auric field clear as possible and to keep your living space clear, your workspace, and wherever it is that you may move in your community, to keep it clear. And the way of keeping clear, there are many, many ways, and I would assume that many of you do these things. How many of you smudge or smoke yourself or your environment? Okay, yeah, that's what I assumed, many of you. Now, smudging or smoking has been around for eons. It is the way that spiritual people have cleansed an environment or cleansed themselves. And if you look at the Catholic Church, it's the frankincense and myrrh and the brazier, right? If you go to Brazil or Brazil or Peru, it's salopanto. If you go to Mexico, it's copal. If you go to the Middle East, it's frankincense and myrrh, and that's where the Catholic Church got that particular thing. If you go to India, they make incredibly unique incense sticks that you can buy and purchase. I just make a correlate as only buy natural stuff, not the chemicalized stuff. But every country has their way of smoking an environment or people. So I suggest, and it's what I do regularly, is that you get something with which you can smudge. We say smudge because in the Southwest, it's Native American, and they use sage sticks or different kinds of herbs that they grow and take in the high desert. And all you need to do is get something that smokes and literally smoke your living space every day, or at least every other day, or at least every week. Because when you allow yourself to do that, it cleanses the space between all of the electrons and the nucleus. It gives them a chance to cleanse and be refreshed. It changes the matrix of energy so that there can be an infilling of greater light, so that the old, stuck, stayed things get released. It doesn't matter what you sage with, but it is important. We say saging again because that's smudging. It's whatever you use. I use many different things today, and whatever the inspiration is of the day, that's what I use. For those of you who are near the sea, I often I have several seashells that I've purchased over the years in my life, and I use the seashell to hold whatever I'm saging if I'm not using a sage stick, whether that's copal or whether it's a bit of frankincense resin or some myrrh or whatever. Now, if you begin to sage, it will change the environment that you have left behind through old radiation, meaning the radiation of your emotional states. You change it. And when you walk into your house again, there will be a new, fresh feeling. Or you walk into your workspace when we go back to work. It will be new. And as you're saging, take the time to sage your own body. You know, do the top, the bottom. You can't get your back unless you have a friend who lives with you, and then you can have them sage up and down your spine. I even have people lift their arms and get the underarms a little bit and out the arms. And it changes my energy. If I am impacted or traumatized by something, it basically puts me in a different space, a different frame of mind, and I have different resources and tools that I can then pull on when I'm not overwhelmed by an impact. That's where saging comes in, or smudging comes in. So I recommend that everybody do that. Many of the traditional things that healers use are candles, crystals. Absolutely work. I use candles. I use lots of crystals. And keep them activated and keep them cleansed. You can sage your crystals if you're going to use them. Make sure you do cleanse your crystals if you're using them. Pick them up and give an old sage or smudge. or put them in cool water with salt, or put them out in the sun. That can clean most anything, including sacred objects that you have around your house. Because sacred objects that you revere, that you care for, they will also emanate a higher vibration for you in your home. Now, you may be with someone who doesn't believe in any of this, doesn't care about it. It's still pretty easy to go ahead and sage, you know, or put a crystal out that has a high vibration, or bring fresh flowers in. Oh, a wonderful way of changing the energy. So that is one of the ways we can keep our spaces cleansed of the old matrix of crystallization from our thoughts and our mental and emotional emanations. If you can do that, you will begin preserving your own integrity as a being in today's world. Because there is, I call it massive streams of energy that are flowing around the planet. It's like streams within an ocean, currents within an ocean. And they are thick and they are dark today because of people's fear. And they are everywhere. They're flowing right through as we sit here and talk right now. They're flowing through us. That flows through the empty space too. It's not preserved to just our bodies. It's everything. Cosmic rays come in through our bodies and all the empty space. So when you go out at night and you look at the full moon and you go, isn't that beautiful? Those rays are going through your body, and you can use them to right the balance in yourself by bringing that emanation of the moon to you, or the sun, or the stars, or any dimensional space in the cosmos you can use to refresh yourself. Another way you can easily take care of your own being is when you take a shower. Be aware that that water, which is not solid, is running through your body, which is not solid, and the water is cleansing and refreshing you. You imagine it. You use your mind now to help the process happen better. And you bring that water all the way through, and you stand there and let it just cleanse you inside and out, inside and out. And it will refresh your auric field, and it will refresh the field within your body as well. You can also, if you're not at a shower and you're out in the world, and I heard a story the other day of someone being very nasty to a young woman of color, and the other person came in to protect the woman of color, and the person who was dumping who was being the bully turned to the person who was trying to help the person. And that always happens. So if you're in a situation and you move into something that is difficult, and you leave that situation eventually, then imagine, as you're going back to your own space, that you're taking a color bath. All the colors of the rainbow can flow through your body in the same way the water can. Because if you imagine it, it's true. It's true. Comes right straight through you. And you allow any color you want. You can choose a color for the day or a color for the week. It can be any color you feel you need, because it is a vibratory pattern that will nourish you. We are light, sound, and color. So if you use color in any way, you are augmenting your color frequencies, which is part of all that empty space. In all your atoms of the billions and billions that make up your body. So those are a few of the things that you can do, and I'm kind of checking our time now. I think I'm okay still for a little while. But what I want to talk also are some very easy things that can help you do what you do better. When I travel, whether I get in a car to travel, whether I get in a plane to travel, a bus, doesn't matter, I always set up a corridor of light. And what that means is that here we are driving down to Albuquerque. It's about an hour and a half until I get in the car, and I begin to feel my light emanate around my car. And then I ask the presence of light around me, the angels, the guardians of light, those who walk with me. I said, I want some help here, and I'd like you to help me set up a corridor of light in front of me. I want it to be, usually I try to make it about 100 feet or yards, depending what my day is. I ask that light go before me. I guess that light go out to my right, out to my left. That light go behind me, below me, and above me. And so I am in a bubble of active flowing light on the entire drive down. I also ask that that light be used by anyone who passes through it who has need of it, and it be absolutely instantly replenished for all of us. And I take my drive down to go to Costco in Albuquerque. Always do I do a quarter of light. If I start in Albuquerque and I'm going to fly to New York, I have a quarter of light set up all the way. Doing it with my own visualization, yes, but with all the help of divine beings. And that the landing is clear. And that getting into the city is okay. Never good, but it's okay, right? That everything, if I do a class, like before I was thinking about doing this talk today, I spent time last night literally setting up a core of light between all of us so that the energy would flow freely between us. I do that when I work with clients so that the light that I work with is encased in greater light. And so setting up a corridor of light is an excellent way. If I'm going off to Trader Joe's, set up a corridor of light. Takes me to Trader Joe's. I stand in line. I get in the door, corridor of light, because now we know what we're buying, right? We're not just browsing. And then I go through and I come home. It's a very comforting tool to have if you know you can do that. Whenever I work in private practice, whether it's by phone or in person, I always fill the room with light, clear the room with light. Now, saging is excellent. It's physical. It's really, you have your hands on it. But the other way of doing that kind of shift is your energy, you emanate light through your being out into the space you want cleared. And you hold it until you feel it's clear. And then that place, and I ask that it be prepared and ready for whoever might be coming, and that all of their guardians and light beings come with them, mine as well, and that everything be guided by the highest divine power possible. And I do it by working with light. The corridor of light is a great way to start because you can see it move before you, you know. But this of just using the light in your practice is a fabulous thing to do. Now, there's one other thing. When you're having a problem with people, someone in your family, someone in your neighborhood, someone in your government, all right, what you can do is, again, do light. Surround them with light. See them in a bubble of light. Ask that they receive the highest energy they possibly can. And yes, with that, I was thinking of my government. But what you can also do is, if you have a problem, you can actually sit in meditation and be aware of the light, build the light in you, and ask that person come into the light. And that what flow between you is the highest light possible. And whatever clearing needs to happen is the highest possible. And you do it until you feel it's done. It can resolve a tremendous amount of negative, niggly, resentful things in us if we do that, if we use the light to live our lives. And so that's the basic thing I'm saying here is be aware of who you are, of its multidimensionality, of the levels of your being, and bring the light. So the light is the predominant energy in all the empty space. So that good thoughts about yourself as a human being, kind thoughts, caring thoughts, is filling that empty space. And that good thoughts about the possibility of our future is filling that empty space, because it will positively affect. Now, for a moment, because Wendy said many of you are into nutrition, and I'm deeply into nutrition. I'm on the 8th day of a 10-day colon cleanse right now. And I do that a couple times a year usually. And so when you eat, when you choose your food, regardless what diet plan, I feel they're all valid. You pick and choose what's good for your soul and your body and your lifestyle. But some of the keys are, remember that this food we eat, these supplements we take, if they're high quality, are filled with light. They're all empty space. So if you're growing organic or eating organic, it has more light. They've also found it has more nutrition. That's very important as well. But to me, it's the light. It's the sparkle of the life force in the food you choose. Be aware of it. Choose it for yourself. Choose it for your family. Feed your children food that has life force, because it will give you more life force. It will give you more light in all the space in your atoms. So choose what works for you. Yes, I have things that work for me. I have certain guidelines that I offer people when I work with them. But mostly, you choose for the light. You choose for the wholeness. And because organic food has more light and more wholeness, you choose that. But it's always good, better, and best. The best will be choose biodynamic, then organic, and then if you are with, let's say you're out with friends or family, and someone has prepared a wonderful meal with conventional food for you, but their heart is part of that preparation, sit down, eat it, embrace them, say nothing, and you will be filled with such light because it'll be your love, the acceptance of their gift that will nourish you. And that will change the space in the atoms again and make it lighter. So it's all about kindness. It's about awareness. It's about consciousness. And that's the most important thing we're dealing with today. If you can keep your empty space filled with light in any of the ways that works for you, you will change the world. That's a given. You will. If we all do that who are even marginally conscious, can you imagine the exponential change that will happen? So I believe I'm going to leave the talk right now, and you guys can ask questions.
Perhaps I'd like to start you off, Linda. How important is it for us to bless our food? And is there a way of doing that?
I consider it very important. It must have been 30 years ago. I was out with a friend who was an amazing healer. He had healed, my mother had had an auto accident, and he healed her 3 ribs in less than an hour. And so it was pretty amazing. So I really loved Frank. We went out with friends to a local diner in the Berkshires, and everyone was having banana cream pie. And I wasn't, because I didn't eat sugar at all in those days. And neither did he. So we looked at each other and said, well, let's order a piece of pie and see what we can both do. So we ordered banana cream pie, and we both did this. If you put your right hand down above the food, and you put your left hand above that, just like this, you begin a channeling energy dynamic that brings the energy from the left into the right, and the right goes into the food. And if you're willing to hold that, that will change the food you're eating. It'll change it profoundly. That's one way. Now, it took him 20 minutes to change a banana cream pie. Because once he said, okay, I'm done. And I took me 22 minutes. Then I knew it was done. You can feel the energy change at that point. And so we took a bite of our pie, and it was delicious. I hadn't tasted banana cream pie for years. But then everyone else was done eating. So then we passed our pieces of pie to everybody at the table. They tasted and said, oh my God, this is not the pie we ate. And we said, yeah, we know. So that is a wonderful way of changing anything. It can be a glass of water. It can be a glass of wine. It can be your food. It can be a broken bone. It can be a bruise, or there's lots of things you can do with, I call it pancake energy. One, the right down, then the left above. There are other ways of changing the food. Let me talk on a physical way. And this I've been doing again for 40 years or more. And if you need to buy conventional food, what you can do is Clorox your food. Now, it's only done with Clorox brand bleach. And I'm saying this because the U.S. Diplomatic Corps for 50 years used Clorox to clean all the food coming in to the embassies for years. And I learned this from a diplomat in England. And he had known it was happened. He schooled his family and friends in it. And what you do is you take a big, either a sink of water or a big pot of water, and you put a tablespoon of Clorox bleach. And you let your fruits or vegetables stay in it for 20 minutes. That's all you need. Then you pour the water out, and you rinse the vegetables and fruit, and you let them air dry. Chlorine is a molecule that is it will evaporate in air. It does not stay to the food. It is gone within, again, another 20 minutes. It's just gone. What this does is it removes a lot of, granted, the bacteria and all that kind of stuff, or pathogens, or bacteria, or parasites, all those kind of things get removed. But what we found with the woman I trained with, 50, 60 years ago, was that she was told this spiritually. I was told this by her, but also confirmed by the diplomatic corps. And what they learned is that the big agribusinesses that put pesticides out on the fields, that are these big long things with holes and they spray it out, the only thing they use to clean those so they don't get clogged is Clorox. And so Clorox dissolves those pesticides and preservatives, so that if I'm eating conventional food, I will always prepare my food by Cloroxing it and letting it air dry. And we have a lot of people, when we talked, called the Center of the Light, was a healing center I was part of for a long time. And people would experiment with this. So you take a normal banana, 2 bananas from one banana pile, you don't Clorox one and you Clorox the other. 20 minutes, rinse, let it air dry, and then you taste the bananas. You will taste a difference in the bananas or the strawberries or the oranges. It will taste different to your palate because it won't have all that stuff on it. Changes. So that's on a physical level. If you don't have access to organic, for years, organic was not a very available in the world. And we had to Clorox for 200 to 300 people every week at the center. People would come in for training programs. So it works. And then this fellow who talked about it and confirmed it in Britain for me, he said they had moved into a beautiful place in Oxford, and there was a running stream in the back of the house, and there was watercress everywhere. But they were told never to eat the watercress because it was full of poison. Never touch it. So nobody on that stream ever touched the watercress. He said, well, I wonder if it would work for the watercress. So he went out, harvested watercress, Cloroxed it, he and his wife, and had fabulous watercress salads from then on. And eventually the neighbors began to do the same. So my feeling is that it makes an energetic shift in the food that can lift the vibratory pattern. It gets rid of all the chemicals and pesticides. So there's more room for the light and the true essence of a food in that empty space. You can use your mind on food, which is what I do a lot today if I eat in a restaurant. I may do this, but I don't often eat in restaurants where I need to do that. I'm pretty careful about where I go, and the chefs are good chefs and they cook organic. Almost every good chef does. But you take the moment to see the food alive. You see it sparkling with life force. You see that sparkling of life force transmute everything within that food into its wholest, most perfect expression of itself. When you change food like this or with your hands, it does take time. It's not like I'm going to go have a Baskin-Robbins ice cream cone, which I think are terrible ice cream cones, all full of plastic. And I'm sorry I'm being opinionated now, but that's what I believe. Haagen-Dazs is better. There are some wonderful gelato places that we all have around that are probably really good. But you want that ice cream. You can't just go and get your ice cream cone and look at it for a second and transmute it. That eventually can happen, but you have to be really good about working with energy, working with focus, working with intention, and holding the truth of the light. If you can do those 4 things, you can transform things pretty quickly. I've gotten better and better at it over time. But it's not as though you can change it. Normal people who don't play in the energy field aren't going to change their food by looking at it or imagining it for a minute that it changes. It won't, unfortunately. So you got to grow that muscle, grow the muscle that can transform energy. Transform your own energy, keep your own energy clear, and you will grow the muscle that can engage with the world in a way that is transformative quickly. And I think we're moving into a time on the planet when that is going to become the norm, not the exception. There are many things that boost the immune system, but as with heart disease or inflammatory diseases, any practitioner worth their salt is going to start with diet. Bottom line, diet can change many, many varieties of heart conditions dramatically. It can reverse diabetes. It can lower inflammatory diseases. This is an inflammatory disease. At this time, in general, I would recommend that you start eating extremely well if you haven't been. I would say you should look to good vitamin C. Vitamin C is known to be an aid. They were using vitamin C infusions in China. and it was making a difference. We don't hear much about that in this country because we poo-poo anything that is alternative here. You may not where you are. So I would say find a good high quality C. Now, the C's that I use, I spend a lot of time researching supplements because I really like it. And I like to find things that really work. There are many things that are hyped to be based on current research, but those companies who do that are just riding a bandwagon. They are not using the quality of raw material necessary to make a product do the things that happened in testing. And they're not doing the production level that would make it be as vital as in testing, and the quantity in the pill. So I'm really careful about remedies that are touted by a lot of companies. I choose certain companies that I really respect, that I have worked with for years. I keep my antenna up for new companies that have that kind of integrity. And by kind of integrity, I mean they're careful about their raw material source, period. And they will not make a product if a good raw material is not available. Companies that don't have that much integrity will use any raw material just to get the product out so they can make the money. They will have a processing of that raw material that has a tremendous amount of integrity. And I usually work with companies, and there's only one or two in the United States who process their own supplements. So they know from the beginning to the end what that supplement is. And then they often grow their own raw material. So I'm pretty careful about supplements that I use. I really don't go to a health food store much anymore. There are some good health food store companies. Where are you located, Daisy?
California, Southern California.
Okay, you can get some decent stuff. There's a company called Burnham N.D, I think it's professional line, and Pure is called its commercial line. They're careful about the raw material. I personally use a lot of biotics. I use them a lot. That's not the only product line I do. I use a lot of Premier Labs. Now, when I say I use a lot of the supplements, it means I've researched them, I know the company, I know the products, and they work. So that's the most important thing. You can spend a lot of money going to a health food store and buying something, a company who made something on the bandwagon. And that's a waste for you and a waste for your health. There are, because I don't spend as much time in a health food store as I used to, and that was the only place to buy things, you can get some solid products by companies in the States from Tyler, from Douglas Labs. They're all pretty good. They don't process their own products themselves, but they have a lot of integrity, and so I like them. So those are some product lines. Now, immunity itself, there is one company in the States that's making some really wonderful Peruvian herbs. And so cat's claw, desmodium, chacropiedra. And those are all of them are high immune boosters. So at the moment, I'm actually using a lot of the three of them. And they're all in tincture. Most of them are tincture form. They're a company that makes high-grade maca, again, for the immune system and vitality. So I could recommend, it's called Whole World Botanicals. And if you, I carry all of these, I keep them, but you can also find them online. And I think the cat's claw is profound for the immune system, as is the desmodium, particularly because desmodium works for respiratory problems. I would say, particularly for today, because it's a respiratory thing we're dealing with, it would be good to get a good herbal blend of high quality organic herbs that you drink as tea. I'm a real tea proponent. I think making a tea, investing your energy in tea, drinking a tea does a whole lot for you vibrationally. So I'll often make a lung tea and then add the cat's claw to it, or add the desmodium to it as well. And a good lung tea is, you want mullein in it. You want mullein. And you don't want the blossoms, you want the leaves. They don't sell the blossoms because they have a little narcotic energy in them. But you get mullein. You can use a tincture if you want. That's also excellent. Pleurisy root would be part of that. Parsley would be very good with that. Horsetail grass would be very good to it. All of those herbs are good lung herbs. But lungs are interestingly synergistic, which means if you use a lung for one thing, it helps everything in your body. So all of the herbs I just mentioned are good for your system. Cat's claw, particularly the immune system. Desmodium, immune system, and the lungs. The others are primarily lung herbs. Colt's foot, another really good lung herb. So drink a tea every day that you make. Your own little mixture. I mix them together. I do this. I do equal parts by volume. Then I have a tablespoon to use when I'm making a cup of tea. I don't have to make it fresh. I have a jar of it in my pantry. So I have that for lung herbs. I have it for digestive herbs. I have it for liver herbs. So I have what I need when I need it. One of the biggest parts of immunity is what we've been talking about. It's not a small part of immunity. It's a major part of immunity. To literally, I don't think there's any greater force in our universe than love-infused light. Period. And I have experienced miracles in my life and in my body, and I have participated in miracles with others, and I have helped initiate and sustain miracles in others. I believe in them. And it is the quality of our heart that is the most important thing that we can bring to a crisis like this. Do you love yourself, Daisy? Do you accept who you are and what your life has given you? All the things you've made, decisions that you don't think are right, and all the things you've made that were wonderful. Do you love who you are? Have you brought us to this moment? And with that, that becomes the igniting flame that changes your immune system. We're talking spiritual immunity and psychic immunity. It's immunity is self-love. So I can go through companies and I can tell you products, you know, you want to make NAC is good, NAD plus is good, Larch is good. Those all build the immune system wonderfully. Glutathione, that finally there are some very fine companies that are making a bioavailable glutathione that will help us detox. It's an antioxidant. Our body makes it. As we get older, we don't have much glutathione production in the liver. If your liver is toxic, if you've had a toxic diet, if you've had a toxic life where you haven't processed the pain, it's in your liver, in your kidneys. So the liver gets clogged. And if the liver is clogged, it doesn't detoxify the way it needs to. And if it doesn't detoxify, you're not able to handle the processes of the pandemic, of COVID-19. You can't. Your eliminative processes, your skin, your kidneys, your digestion, your breath, that's what eliminates toxins. That's what can take in nutrition. If you haven't taken care of those organs and you find yourself, and we also have genetic problems, which has nothing to do with how we take care of ourselves. There are challenges that we have karmically and a familial lineage, and they're important and we need to meet them. But for the most part, even they are met by the love in your heart for yourself. They are met for that love emanating through all of your empty space, through all of your levels, through all of your auric field. So anywhere you have a hesitation in bringing that love of self into active participation in your life, take a look at it. Do some work on it. I'm a naturopath, you know, professionally, and an energetic healer. So much of the last 40 years for me have been working one-on-one with people. And I do nutritional programs, lifestyle programs. I take people through genetic disorders. I take people through illnesses. And as a friend says, just say you'll help them with whatever ails them. So yes, I do. And I've asked Wendy, I sent her my contact information, both my website, my email. My website's still under construction, but it's great. I love it. It's up. But my email and my phone number, I gave you my cell phone, all of you. I do use a cell phone rather than my business phone. And feel free to contact me. And I'll tell you how I work, and you'll tell me what you need. Foremost is prayer and meditation, at least so that you can gather yourself to your core, so that you can maintain integrity of who you are. And I often do that with what I call a rejuve breath. It's part of the facial rejuvenation process I teach. And so as we end this, let's end with a rejuve breath so that you can take that with you. The most important thing is start gathering yourself together. The medical world, the allopathic world, I work in it with clients. I have been in it myself with a major injury. I do understand how frightening it is and how difficult it is to hold yourself together when you receive information from people who are authorities, and then you give over your power to the authority. The most important thing is to maintain your own core of being as deeply as you can. And if you gather yourself, literally take all your levels of being, draw them in to the core that comes down the center of your body. Now that is the core of light in which the chakras are seated. But if you can do that and bring it in all the time, and then build the light in the way we've been talking about, you can engage with practitioners, be they allopathic or alternative, or if you choose to, both. But you can't lose yourself in a diagnosis process. Be aware also that if you take a diagnosis as exactly what they say it is, it's a solid thing and it doesn't change, that is a difficult thing too, and it can be dangerous for us in our healing path, because let's take cancer for a moment. Everybody's cancer is their own. Every cancer is unique to that person. It is not a lumped cancer, whether it be from breast or prostate or lung. It's not. It's that person's unique cancer. And it is a place of overgrowth that needs to be addressed in a unique way. Yes, there are a panorama of things that can work for many people with that cancer, but everything will not work. It has to be tuned to the person. So if you lose yourself, your sense of self, your sense of who you are as a being in that journey, it becomes really, really, really hard for you to hear what's good for you and to make wise choices for yourself. So gathering yourself together. Then from that gathered place, literally choosing the people to work for who empower you, people who don't disempower you. So you want to choose doctors or nurses or practitioners or healers who power you to heal yourself. Because that's really the only place we heal. We heal within, and we heal ourselves. And all the help we need is coming at us from the outside, which is important. We need that, but it has to allow that process of self-healing to take place, because that's where healing really rests. Just get comfortable. And I want you to be aware of your spine. And I want you to start breathing in your own rhythm in your own time. Just be aware of the in-breath and the out-breath. Don't try to do a breath at the moment. Just breathe. Own time, own rhythm, own volume. But it's up the core of your body. You're aware of the core as you breathe. Now, when you inhale, I want you to bring that breath up from the root of your spine all the way up your back on the outside of your spine. So you inhale up the back, and you feel that breath literally roll round above your head and come in front of you. And the exhalation comes down the front of your body, all the way to the root. And you breathe in, up the back of your body. And you let the breath roll round over the crown and flow down the front of your body as you exhale. So allow yourself to inhale. Roll round and exhale. And at the bottom, it rolls round and begins coming up the back. And it rolls round at the crown and flows down the front. And now in your own time, just breathe in that pattern for a few moments. Let yourself take 7 or 8 or 9 of these breaths. And allow that breath to move through all of your levels of being, right up the spine and down the front. And as the breath moves up, rolls round, moves down, and rolls round, allow yourself to let this breath knit your levels together as one whole self. So all you've gathered in is now centralized and receiving the prana of this breath for you. And as you finish your 7 or 8 or 9 breaths, just gently resume your normal breath in and out. Feel your lungs. Feel your body. Feel your core. And slowly open your eyes. And be aware of this moment. Where you are, what you've experienced, what you've taken in, what's been appropriate for you, what you're letting flow through you as not for you. And allow yourself to gather all that was for you and make it part of that core. And feel how you feel right now. Just note the difference from before you breathed to now. If you don't feel any major difference, be aware that there is a difference. And be aware of how you go about your day now or your evening. And try to do this breath more often. The more you bring your attention to this soft, gentle breath, the more it will become a channel of mending you, centering you, grounding you, bringing you to a wholeness. And then you will feel a difference. I always use it in moments of stress. I use it when I need to be very focused. I use it whenever I read the news today. And it lets me handle what's happening in a different manner. So I leave this as a final gift, and I thank you so much for being present. And yes, you're welcome to email me, to give me a call if you need something specific. Check out my website. I like it. It's growing. And if you want to, send your information, your email to me by my email, and I'll put you on my mailing list. All of the things I do, and particularly your medicine chest, which is a spiritual, physical medicine chest that I'm sending all kinds of things on all kinds of levels to help us, not just for COVID-19. It started well before that, but with COVID-19 as well. So feel free to get on my mailing list.